So this talk today I titled Ode to My Socks. Did you see that? Ode to My Socks. That's what this book is. This is Pablo Neruda's selected odes. So this talk is also for me kind of a tribute to some of my teachers who I hold so dear. And one of these is a friend and a teacher, Anam Thupten Rinpoche. Do any of you here know Anam Thupten? Are you familiar? Yeah, just one? Okay, well, become familiar with Anam Thupten. He's an amazing Dzogchen Tibetan teacher who lives in the Bay Area and is just such a light, is so fun and so awake. And I had the blessed opportunity for the last 3 years of getting to assist at Spirit Rock with him and my teacher, James Beres, and Trudy Goodman. And this last retreat that we were doing in September was called Devotion to the Sacred. I just love it. I just love that. I just love the name of that. So just to say here as we start going into this talk, of which I'm going to use this word sacred a lot, I do know, and this retreat, Devotion to the Sacred, is one that James Beres, my teacher, and I created together at Spirit Rock a couple of years ago and have done a few times. And what we've noticed is people don't necessarily love this word sacred. You either love it, or maybe there's some baggage that you might have, or some association with this word sacred that doesn't do what doesn't do what it's doing for me when I say it. So, just to say that that's okay. We can substitute it with some other words like meaningful, or just a sense of importantness. I think I made up that word, but I really like it. Importantness. Meaningfulness, sacredness. And so, but this idea, there's an idea that's sort of embedded into the Tibetan culture, a way of perceiving life, all of life, as sacred. And this is just like at the very core of the Tibetan culture, perceiving everything as sacred. So, during this last retreat, Anam Thupten was giving the opening talk, and one of the things I love about him is he doesn't use any notes. He just kind of just gets up there and starts talking in this amazing way that some teachers do so easily. And he started riffing on Pablo Neruda. And he was talking about how we can perceive everything as sacred, and what happens when we perceive all of life as sacred. And he said, I love Pablo Neruda. He has like 244 odes that he writes. Odes. Ode to my socks. He said, there's a poem, Ode to my socks. Can you believe that? I could think of my socks. I could be grateful. I could think of my socks as sacred. And he he gets on a riff, and it had such an impact on me, this little riff in this talk that he gave. What if we just went around writing odes to everything? And during that week, I noticed that this mind started doing that, just writing. And sometimes I would, actually sit down and write a little ode to this or that. But what I noticed was just walking the land, I started just writing an ode or telling something like, ode to my teacup right now. Like if I was feeling a sense of presence or gratefulness with it, it would become an ode. Ode to the oak tree. I have to just read you some of these odes, just the name. Because yes, I can read you the poem, and I will read you the Ode to the Socks, because I feel like we need to. But I love just reading these titles. Ode to an Artichoke, Ode to the Atom, Ode to a chestnut on the ground. Ode to criticism. Ode to a laboratory technician. Ode to wood. Ode to numbers. Ode to the past. Ode to laziness. Ode to time. Ode to tomatoes. Ode to a stamp album. Ode to light on the sea. Ode to sadness. And on and on and on. 200, I think 224. They're not all in this book, but. So ode to socks, let's do it. And I read this as an ode to my teacher and friend, Anam Tupten. Ode to my socks, Pablo Neruda. Meru Mori brought me a pair of socks, knitted with her own shepherd's hands. 2 socks, soft as rabbits. I slipped my feet into them as if into jewel cases, woven with threads of dusk and sheep's wool. Audacious socks. My feet became 2 woolen fish, 2 long sharks of lapis blue shot with a golden thread. 2 mammoth blackbirds, 2 cannons. Thus honored were my feet by these celestial socks. They were so beautiful that for the first time my feet seemed unacceptable to me. 2 tired old firefighters, not worthy of the woven fire of those luminous socks. Nonetheless, I resisted the strong temptation to save them, the way schoolboys bottle fireflies, the way scholars hoard sacred documents. I resisted the wild impulse to place them in a cage of gold and daily feed them birdseed and rosy melon flesh. Like explorers who in the forest surrender a rare and tender deer to the spit and eat it with remorse, I stuck out my feet and pulled on the handsome socks, and then my shoes. So this is the moral of my ode. Twice beautiful is beauty, and what is good doubly good when it is the case of 2 woolen socks in wintertime. I remember a couple of years, Anam Tupten was telling me how in Tibet, on their altars where they put all of their sacred objects, they also put yak dung as a reminder that all can be seen as sacred. And I remember also him telling that story and then going into a group interview and someone asking, you know, you said everything is sacred, but I watched the news and, you know, this person like shared a story of violence, and what about that is sacred? And Anam Tupten said, no, not all actions are sacred, but we perceive the people as sacred, the clothes they're wearing is sacred, the earth they're standing on is sacred. So even as I go on with this talk and consider using the sacred or meaningfulness or importance as a way of looking at all things, we can hold that it might not be the appropriate perception for everything, and that's okay. The invitation is to use this and see where it does open the heart or support. Support us on our path, and when would it not feel appropriate? And that's okay. So just right now, before we get more into it, if you were to feel into these words, sacredness, meaningfulness, and maybe just reflect on a time, or even imagine yourself right now feeling connected to something meaningful or sacred. What happens for you internally in the heart, in the body, in the mind. Like, how do you know that you're in the presence of something meaningful, important, or sacred? And Mel, would you mind turning the mic on? Or I'd wonder, there's a mic right in front of you. We could just have a little bit of, oh yeah, Paul, thanks. If anyone feels called to share, how do you know when you're in the presence, and online too, of course, when something feels meaningful, sacred?
Michael, pronouns are he, him, his. What came up for me when you posed the question was lightness. There was just a feeling of lightness in the heart that instantly arose.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Hi, I'm Pam.
Pam.
She, her pronouns. Warmth that sort of starts here and just goes down to my legs and hands.
Warmth going through the body. Thanks, Pam.
Stillness came up for me when you said it during the meditation. It was like whoosh, just everything got calm. It was lovely 45 seconds.
Right, yes. Aha, thank you. Beautiful.
Paul, I hear it. I would say for me, it's like the words just dropped away. It didn't need any more words. It just made sense.
No story. And when the words aren't there, what's there, Paul?
Quiet. Good kind of quiet.
What came to mind for me was connection.
Sense of connection?
Yeah, the connection with loved ones, my family, my friends, my neighbors, my community.
Yeah. Beautiful, thank you. What was your name? Will you remind me your name? Ed.
Ed.
Thank you.
For me, Maggie, she, her, awe and goosebumps.
Vic, he, him. I just had a memory of hiking in the Badger Creek Wilderness and just being in nature, being connected.
Feeling connected in nature, yeah.
Jim, he, him, no boundaries.
Expansive feeling, yeah. We could do this all day. Yes, please.
Hi, Matt, he, him pronouns. I get a rising feeling of like responsibility or protectiveness.
You want to protect that which is sacred.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Beautiful. Anyone at home, Mel, want to share? Anyone at home?
Yeah, Michael,
Okay, Mike, yeah.
feeling of safety and coziness.
Safety. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Anyone at home? Yeah. From Kay? Katie, gratitude. And so with this theme, I'm going to invite us to put on this lens of perception of the sacred and look at both what's pleasant and what's unpleasant as sacred and see the potential in that, just like the Tibetans do with the yak dung on the altar. Anam Tupten was saying, we don't have yak dung in El Cerrito, but I find old Coke cans and put them on my altar. He's like, because we don't think Coke cans are sacred, right? We don't think they're sacred, so I put them on my altar. So sweet. And I do want to say that this talk for me and this way of looking, this way of perception, this way of practicing is really central to my own way of practicing, and it's really meaningful for me, and I'm just so happy to share some of these ideas and thoughts today. And I was just walking around, just the other day, walking my kid to school and walking home, and like just a ho-hum drum, not like seemingly sacred moment, and that question just popped into my mind. Is there anything sacred about this moment? It was just like so many of the things that all of you just shared. It was like just this, what isn't sacred about this moment? I mean, granted, there wasn't any suffering in that moment, but I would have missed the moment otherwise. I was just walking in between two things I needed to do. And the whole moment came into such a fullness. I really sensed not just the beauty of the roses that were next to me or the sky, but this sense of aliveness. Why is it sacred? Because I'm alive. I'm alive right now. This is a moment of my life right now. I don't want to miss this. I want to be here for it. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking of this little story, this little sutta, the Chigala Sutta. I always heard it called the Sutta of the Precious Human Birth, but as I was doing some research, actually, how many of you have heard this idea of the Buddha calling this life a precious human birth? Yeah, actually, no, he didn't. Actually, ChatGPT could not find that anywhere in any of the suttas. But it is something that has changed from the early Buddhist texts to the Mahayana, which is like the Zen, the Tibetan traditions. It's something that has become central to the Mahayana, precious human birth and sacredness. They have really brought this idea that everything is sacred alive, and it's beautiful. I thought this is the story about the turtle. Some of you, are you familiar with the turtle? But let's just read it, because it's beautiful. Okay. It's short. Okay, mendicants, practitioners, us. Suppose the earth was entirely covered with water. Okay, so suppose the earth was entirely covered with water. So no land. That's a lot of water, right? And a person threw a yoke, which is like a hula hoop, with a single hole. Just someone threw a hula hoop on the earth, but the whole earth is just ocean. Think of how much ocean that is. Think of how big a hula hoop is. The east wind wafts it west, the west wind wafts it east, the north wind wafts it south, and the south wind wafts it north. And there was a one-eyed turtle, so not two eyes, but just one eye, who popped up once every 100 years. It's all water, no earth. What do you think, mendicants? Would that one-eyed turtle popping up once every 100 years still poke its neck through the hole in that yoke? It's unlikely, sir. That's how unlikely it is to get reborn as a human being. And that's how unlikely it is for a realized one to arise in the world, a perfected one, a fully awakened Buddha. And that's how unlikely it is for the teaching and training proclaimed by a realized one to shine in the world. And now, mendicants, us, we have been reborn as a human being. A realized one has arisen in the world. A perfected one, a fully awakened Buddha. We have had the Buddha to sit there under the Bodhi tree and look at the mind and see what was going on and have enough courage to teach it. That's happened to us in life. And the teaching and training proclaimed by a realized one shines in the world. So all these things that we're born, and it said that to have this human birth gives us just enough amount of suffering and just enough pleasure to be able to awaken. That it's not putting a hierarchy of humans over animals, but because we're not born as animals, we are born as humans, we get to awaken. And we get to do that for the benefit of all beings. So this is rare. This is rare. It's rare for us to be sitting here on a Sunday morning talking about this stuff also. This is rare. We know that. Or if you don't know that, tune into that. It's rare. And that rare, that's the stuff of sacredness, I think. Or maybe one facet, I guess we could say. And that's, I think for me, why when I can ask myself, what about this is sacred, or what about this is meaningful, and I don't just ask it in times when life is going really well. Actually, I ask it more in times when it's not. That is what it brings me back to remembering. I am alive, and I can use this as my doorway to awakening. So, some years back, and this is sort of where this really opened for me before meeting Anam Thupten and all of that. I started really becoming interested in this teacher, Rob Burbea, and I know I talk about him a lot in this hall. He's had a great impact on me in my practice. And there was one talk that I listened to, and he's a kind of out of the box Vipassana insight teacher. He's no longer alive, but he's a Pali Canon Buddhist scholar of actually all of just one of those genius minds of our time, but very, very much a provocative teacher, like ask these questions where listen to a talk and be like, what are you getting at? What? Yes, I did. So as an example, this talk he was saying, do you know why you practice? Do you really know why it is you practice? I was like, that's a great question. I love that question. He was like, are you practicing to be more fully in the moment? I was like, yes. Like, are you practicing? And because he was like, asking these questions, like getting at it, like, maybe this isn't just the whole story. And he said, like, are you practicing to live life to the fullest? I was like, I think so. Yeah. Are you and then he said, are you practicing to, just be here in the present moment, something like that. And then he said, are you practicing just to be free from suffering? And I was like, well, yeah. Isn't that what are you getting at here? And then he said, are you at all practicing to get in closer connection with what's sacred? And I just had a visceral, just heart, something shifted for me with that question. It's like, yes, of course, all of those things you just listed, but this last one, yes, I am, but I didn't know that. It wasn't something that was really talked about, but it was my experience. And I can remember back to my early days when I first started practicing, and I was practicing and I wasn't feeling more necessarily in the present moment or relief from suffering or that I was living it was just hard, but something kept me coming back over and over and over to the practice. I mean, maybe I was getting like little glimpses of more presence, more freedom, but not anything shocking, But when I heard him say that, it just was this sort of like, I think that's what's been keeping me coming back. It's like every time when I sit and just have that sense of coming home to myself, I do touch this feeling of sacredness. Like, oh, this is meaningful. I don't even necessarily know why yet, but I know this is important. There's something about this that just feels important. And so that's when I first began practicing with this as an idea. And the whole premise of Rob's talk there was, what if you actually put more emphasis on becoming more connected to what's sacred than being free from suffering? I'll let you do with that what you like. But it was onward very, very much has been, it started a huge, huge, huge shift in my practice. And I think for me, this is something we talked about just recently in our Wings of Awakening class, where we were really talking about these 3 classical insights of Buddhism, which are looking at things as impermanent, anicca, looking at things as understanding the dukkha quality of things, the unreliability of all conditioned things, and the anatta principle, or the anatta way of looking. Not me, not mine, not belonging to me, not self. And these are ways of looking. These are also, we could call them truths, but we could also call them perceptions, way of perceiving things. What happens when I perceive what's going on in front of me as impermanent? What happens when I perceive what's happening internally or around me as permanent? How does that go when I'm seeing this mind state as permanent? When I'm looking at this body as permanent, what happens? So not to go into these too much, but when we are practicing just, diving into these 3 ways of looking, it can get very serious. It can get even at times cold and, okay, it's all impermanent and not self, and I look at this and I look at the changing phenomena, and that's why we have these 2 wings of the Dharma, because we the support of the heart, of not just holding everything with compassion, but bringing in warmth, bringing in the resource of metta with all of this. And just to say, this is sort of this is what I would consider another sort of heart-opening practice, perceiving things as sacred. So in the realm of metta. One of the themes of this retreat that we were just teaching became this gesture that Anam Thupten offered on the first night of the retreat, which was this whole path. I think this might have been even the first thing he said as he opened the retreat. This whole path is a journey from here to here. We just did this so many times during the retreat. It became just this kind of thing we did. And I told this I should tell the whole story to this. Some of you heard me tell this recently, but this actually, I think Anam Thupten got this from James Beres, and James tells this story. Did I tell this recently in the hall, in my last talk? Okay. Where my teacher, James, he had his 2 teachers in life were Joseph Goldstein and Ram Dass. And so not too long ago, James went to visit Ram Dass when he was still alive. And at this point, James has been teaching for, 40 years, deep practitioner and teacher. But he had something that he was really wrestling with in his life. I'm not sure exactly what it was. But he went to Ram Dass for counsel. And he was just, I just need to talk to Ram Dass about this, see what his perception is of this, how to work with this, how to move forward. And so he got to Maui, he's sitting down with Ram Dass, and he's like, just telling him the whole story, and then this, and then this, and just, going into it, telling the whole story. What do you think? And Ram Dass just leaned forward and went. And the way that James describes this story is it was like a complete rewiring, rewiring of the brain, like, oh, right. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I just got curious and asked ChatGPT, is the word sacred in the Pali Canon? ChatGPT is a good use for that. And I got that permission from Joseph Goldstein because in a talk recently, he had asked ChatGPT a similar question. It will find it. I don't know how reliable it is. Anyway, ChatGPT could not find the word sacred anywhere in the early Buddhist texts. which doesn't surprise me. But I think it's there. I think it's still just right there. And I was contemplating, I mean, even anicca, dukkha, anatta, I think are sacred perceptions, sacred ways of looking at life, because they lead us to awakening. They cut through the causes of suffering, they free us. But as I was contemplating that, actually this line from the Metta Sutta is coming to me so many times lately, just especially in the light of all that's happening in the world, so much right now. And this one line from the Metta Sutta that says, there's only one teaching in the early Buddhist teachings around metta, and it is called, I don't know what the Pali word for the Metta Sutta is. It's got a longer name. Anybody know? You know, Paul? You know, Doug? Okay. You know, Dan? Anybody know? Okay, don't pull out your phones. We will survive without. What is it? Someone online is texting it. Anyway. Okay. Kalyanamitta? No. Okay. Yeah. It's a long name. Yeah. Okay. Well, we can go to our homework. Anyway, we'll call it the Metta Sutta. And the line is, even as a mother uses her life to protect her child, her only child, so should one cherish all living beings. Even as a mother uses her life to protect her child, her only child, so should one cherish all living beings. If that's not seeing all life as sacred, I don't know what would be. So it's there. Even, the Buddha does use the words a lot, holy, noble. And I was thinking of, if we could even just think about this language-wise for a moment. If I were to say there are these, we're gonna do a class on the 4 truths. Okay, just feel how that lands in your heart. The 4 truths. Okay, and I say the next class will be on the 4 noble truths. Just invites in that quality. These are sacred truths, right? These are noble truths. Yeah. So there's a pith quote, little quote from the Buddha. The world is bound by perception. Which sort of means the world here, meaning our world of suffering, of identification, which is causing us suffering, is related to how we're perceiving things. So when we're perceiving things as permanent, we're going to be bound to suffer. When we're perceiving things as self, I have control over it, internally, externally, not to go so much into this teaching, but it will lead to suffering. When I'm perceiving the things around me, my relationships, myself, my roles, as the source of lasting form of happiness, it will lead to suffering. Because it can't be, because it changes. It can bring me joy, but it can't be a lasting sense of happiness because it changes. So these are these perceptions, anicca, anatta, and dukkha. And the cool thing is there's more than just these 3. There's actually so many different lenses of perception we can try on. Like we can put on lenses of compassion. We can look at a person who's maybe a really difficult person for us. We can filter our glasses put lenses of compassion, we can look at that person and the way we relate to them might change. Yeah. So playing with, experimenting with how we're perceiving. Is how we're perceiving what is happening right now leading to stress and suffering or not? Is it leading to opening the heart? And this is one way to play. And so let's do a little play or experimentation if you don't like that word. So this is just to go internal for a moment. You don't necessarily have to move. You can just, it's just a feeling into your own experience here for a moment. And we'll just experiment with, let's just experiment with our breath, right? And so imagining that over your awareness, you're filtering with lenses, just looking through these lenses of change. So watching the breath for a moment here through the lenses of change. What if we would look at the breath right now through a lens of not self, not me, not mine, not making this breath happen. Breath is being known. And putting on the lens of the sacred or sacredness, meaningfulness, sacred breath. It's just an experiment to see if it changes the way you relate in the moment to what you're being aware of. Okay, and now I'm going to ask you to do something sort of courageous, and this will be to open your eyes and actually look at each other. So online it's easier for you. No one knows it's happening. But if you're willing to turn around and look at each other, if you're not, you can look at me, you can look over at Mel, I don't know. But we're going to look at each other for a moment, and we're going to play with this. We're going to experiment with this. It can be sort of a general look. You don't have to look eye gazing here right now. It's just you can soften your gaze even, but just kind of looking around the room right now. And trying on this lens of looking at each other right now through the lens of impermanence. So everyone here is subject to illness, aging, death. Just noticing what happens when you can see each other through that lens. All of us here changing, subject to illness, aging, death, a loss. And can now try on the lens of looking at each other here through this, let's try not self. And let's try not self as in everyone here is a complete mystery. We think we know, we don't know, continually changing beings, mysteriously unfolding. Even they don't know how they're going to unfold. What happens when you see each other through this lens? And we'll try the last one. Sacred beings here. sacred beings on the path.